Welcome to Green Building Matters, the original and most popular podcast focused on the green building movement. Your host is Charlie Cicchetti, one of the most credentialed experts in the green building industry and one of the few to be honored as a lead fellow. Each week, Charlie welcomes a green building professional from around the globe to share their war stories, career advice, and unique insight into how sustainability is shaping the built environment. So settle in, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and get ready to find out why green building matters.
Everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast, where I get to interview a green building professional somewhere in the world every single week. I hope you're getting inspired just hearing these stories and how everyone's putting together their green building careers. This week is very special because I've got one of my colleagues. I've got one of my up-and-coming rock stars on the podcast. So I've got Jessye Vitier on our SIG team, on our consulting team. Jessye, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Charlie. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, it's great. I love the podcast. I love teaching. And, you know, we've got listeners that every week just want to get inspired as they're putting together either their new green building careers or, heck, maybe they've been doing this a long time and they want some validation. Oh, I was thinking that, but now Charlie and Jessye just said it on the podcast. You know, I really need to look into that more. So just excited to get to know you more. And that's one of my first questions, Jessye, is, you know, where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school?
Awesome. So I grew up in Hialeah, Florida, a small, very heavily Cuban town in Florida. And I went to high school here in Marietta, Georgia. So I moved when I was about 11 years old to Georgia. And then I went to culinary school for about 2 years. I got my culinary degree. I was a chef for about a year, but I didn't really enjoy the chef hours and, you know, working on holidays and stuff like that. So kudos to all the chefs out there. It's a lot of hard work and I couldn't do it for a living. So I went to Georgia State after culinary school where I started a biology degree. I did originally start as pre-med because I was working at a clinic at the time, internal medicine clinic, and I wanted to get into medicine. But I took a really awesome class, an ecology class, and I kind of veered over to doing ecology, and I just completely fell in love with everything environmental and got my biology degree with ecology concentration and a sustainability certificate. So that's where I went to school.
I'm already intrigued, Jessye. You might not know this about me, but I wanted to be a chef when I grew up. And look at us now doing green building. So, you know, to talk a little bit about who's had some influence on you early in your career, any mentors, maybe someone you looked up to, or maybe someone you actually met with along the way so far?
Yes, I have two. So the first mentor I would say was my bio teacher. I had her for so many classes. Her name is Rebecca Chapman. She is just a nature-loving knowledge encyclopedia book when it comes to anything in regards to the outdoors. And I took this really awesome class called Natural Environments of Georgia, where we were able to go around different regions of Georgia and look at the geology and the different native plants based on that region. And we had one class specifically where we went to Pinpoint, Georgia. It's a really, really small town, but it's known for its oysters and its crabs. There's a lot of, there used to be a lot of factories around there for oysters and crabs. And one thing that was, you know, really eye-opening for me was I spoke to a local there when I was visiting Pinpoint, and they were telling me, I asked, you know, we went to the Pinpoint Museum that used to be an oyster and crab factory. And I asked them, like, you know, why did this factory close down? Like, you guys are right here on the marsh. Why didn't you keep it going? And the factory shut down because they built a huge highway. It's called the Diamond Causeway. They built it over the marshes and they did not do sedimentation control. They weren't, you know, careful with it. And all of that, stormwater runoff went into the marshes and literally suffocated the crabs and the oysters in that area. And that's the reason that the factory closed down, because the biodiversity just completely left. And at that moment, I think that's the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something with this and figure out what career I can get into that is going to help mitigate these type of issues. So that's my first big, mentor / idea that.
Yeah, it was really an aha moment there for you too. And what a cool trip. And wow, thank you for sharing that story. I can tell you that really had impact on you.
Yes, definitely. I will never forget talking to that local. She gave me her address and I write her letters sometimes. She's amazing. But yeah, it's really sad to see things like that happen. And I think that was, a big, I got to do something about this. And then the second, which is actually a mentor, is my grandpa. My grandpa's a farmer. He's been a farmer his whole life. He was a farmer in Cuba. He was a farmer when he came to the United States, and he lives on a farm still to this day. 15 minutes from my house in about Austell, Georgia, close to Six Flags. And he still actively farms. He does, squash. He has a lot of animals, chickens, eggs. They only go to the grocery store for necessities like milk and other stuff. But a lot of what my grandparents do is live off of their land. And I think that is so cool and so sustainable and so helpful for the environment. And I just love how my grandpa always instilled in me that, we really need to protect the land and the earth because it literally gives us everything we need to survive. So I think he's been my biggest mentor my whole life.
An inspiration. What's your grandpa's name?
His name is Theodore.
Awesome. Thank you. It's good to give a shout out there. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about the green building career. So, how'd you first find our green building consulting firm, SIG? Could you talk a little bit about that, your internship time, and now how you're also helping oversee some of our amazing kind of farm system, as we call it, of young recruits. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So before I interned at SIG, I actually was interning at Blue Heron Nature Preserve, which is 30 acres of green space in the heart of Buckhead, which a lot of people don't know about it. And I helped to restore the wetlands there, and I helped with trail maintenance, and I absolutely loved it. But I was looking for something a little more, I don't know, I like sitting in an office. I like doing paperwork, and I also like going out on site. So I wanted something that had both. And so I looked for another internship, and I found SIG, and I saw that the interns get to go do site visits, with their managers. And I just was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to be in an office, and then I also get to do on-site work. So I applied, and I was super, super happy when I got the internship. I didn't know what I was getting into, to be honest, because I didn't really study sustainability like that. I got a sustainability certificate through college, but it was more of looking at sustainable systems in regards to nature, not really the built environment specifically. So I, started at SIG, and I immediately loved it. Just everything in regards to I think my favorite thing was just all of the knowledge and all of, the great organization that SIG has to prep, interns and get them really well known with what LEED is and what Fitwel is and what WELL is. And it's just a really good baseline to start with when you really don't know much about the green building movement. And I just really enjoyed everything that I was doing at SIG. And I was so happy when I got hired full-time February of 2020, where I became full-time sustainability consultant. And I started working on projects and actively running them. And it's really, really nice to feel that you have the ability to influence somebody. It could be a client, a friend, or really anyone. And even if somebody random asks me what I do, when I tell them, I kind of open up a new spot in their brain where they're like, maybe I should look into that in my house. Or, yeah, we have to do this at our building, but maybe we can do similar things at home because it's going to be better for the environment.
That's awesome. Thank you for connecting the dots there. I know today you're working on all kinds of great green building and even healthy building projects. So, can you speak to that a little bit? What's kind of keeping you busy today, Jessye? LEED and Fitwel and all these great programs. What kind of work are you doing today?
Yep. So today I am working very heavily on a lot of LEED V4.1 O&M recertification projects through ARC SCORU, which looks at the operations and maintenance performance of a building through a 12-month period. So I've got a lot of those going on right now. Actually, I'm super excited about this one in particular, 111 Sutter. It's a Paramount Group building located in San Francisco. And this is the most highest scoring project I've ever submitted for recertification. They are still pending the final score, but the score currently pending is 91 points. And I just want to give them a huge shout out because it's been the highest scoring point that I personally have worked on. So that is super exciting. Or another type of project that I work on is Fitwel projects. And Fitwel kind of likes to look, instead of the operations and maintenance side like LEED, Fitwel focuses more on the actual health and well-being of the occupants that are coming to the building. So looking at, having fitness centers at the building, being close to parks and different amenities around the building and stuff like that. And I would say my most proudest moment for Fitwel would be my Resurgence Plaza Fitwel 3-star certification. It is the first 3-star Fitwel certification I have ever done. And it is here in my hometown in Atlanta. So super, super, super exciting for that project. And the other most thing I'm working on, which is actually the newest thing that I'm working on, is a site project. So we're looking at putting in a site certification at the Minnesota Zoo. So I'm working with the team there. And it is everything I studied in school. It is literally ecology on 150%. And I absolutely love it. And I cannot wait to get really, really into sites because I already know, like, every time I work on anything with sites, I'm just so happy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know how to do this. I had projects doing this and at school. And it feels really good when you are strong and knowledgeable in one area, especially with me, because I came into this field not knowing much and having to really work to gain the knowledge that I have today. But the sites one is like a natural just baseline of knowledge that I have. So I'm so excited for more site projects to come in.
Excited to hear that. That's a great program that is just now really growing. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
What I heard there, Jessye, was LEED Platinum. That's 91 points. Fitwel 3 stars, now sites. So it sounds like you're really enjoying working on all these green building and healthy building projects. That's exciting. I like to just give an opportunity to ask a humbling question here. Is if you look back so far on life and career so far, what are a couple accomplishments that you're really proud of?
I would say not giving up. I get it. When you're in university, there's a lot going on. There's, homework and tests, and I had a full-time job at the time. I even had a child at the time. So I understand that, there are some breaking points and it gets very difficult, but not giving up and staying ambitious I would say would be one of the main things. And then another one is just staying passionate and really being true to yourself on what you really enjoy doing. And lastly, finding like-minded people or like-minded organizations, reaching out to them, doing information interviews with people at these companies that you want to see more of what they do. I actually get a lot of those through LinkedIn. I get a lot of people reaching out asking what I do, and it's a lot of young professionals. And I'm in the USGBC Emerging Professionals Committee, and there are so many resources out there. You just got to look. So if you've got that passion and you've got that drive and you're not giving up, there are resources and people out there that are going to help and that, are willing to help you get to the next level of where you want to go in your career or of what you want to do. But I think it's really important to have the foundation of the passion, of not giving up, and of going out and doing the work, finding people that are like-minded and finding, internships or volunteering, literally anything you can get your hands on to really see if that is something that you truly desire and want to do.
It's already some great advice for those listening that want to do this kind of work. Jessye, thank you. So we kind of talked about what you're doing today and some really cool projects you're working on. So let's look to the future. What do you think's next? Maybe what are you excited about, or what are you reading up on? What's next in this green building movement?
I've been seeing a lot of, the trend right now is a lot of net positive talk, talking about regenerative energy. But what I personally would love to see in the future is having a more symbiotic relationship between buildings and nature so we can keep the biodiversity up, because it's really low right now. And it hurts my heart. And I'm really connected to, trees and natures and animals. And I think if we design buildings to be more symbiotic with nature or with any animals that are native to the region, I think that would be so great, because we would help each other flourish in this world, and not just necessarily looking at only buildings, but buildings and its areas and what it's affecting.
That's it. It's exciting and inspiring how you worded that. Thank you. So let's get to know you a little bit more here, Jessye. What would you say is your specialty or gift?
I would say my gift would be personal relationships. I really enjoy making relationships with anybody that I meet, making sure there's that respect, but also that humor and fun and just being myself. And, I think it's really awesome to have a lot of friends all around the world and reach out to, if I go traveling or something, I can reach out to whoever. I've made so many friends at SIG with our clients, and it's crazy how you can get close to someone through email, but it's just, I think that's probably my strongest gift. And the other would be, I don't know, I think that's it. Just making personal relationships. I'm a very personable person, and I love talking to people and making relationships and really seeing, I don't know. I think that's
what I heard, if you were to ask me, and this is just a good thing, is you ask the other person, hey, what did you hear? So I said, Charlie, what did you hear? I'd say people. You can get more done when you're aligned and you really care about people and relationships, and who knows where that's going to take you, and you make the time for relationships. That's what I heard. And I'd say, yeah, that's definitely a gift of yours. And, Jessye, obviously I've known you for a while now, and I'd say there's that energy. One of my mentors says you can't fake passion, and I think you've got that, and you just have energy and curiosity, and I've always liked that about you.
Yep, I can agree with that.
So let's talk about habits, routines, rituals. Do you have any good habits?
So I love to be organized. I need to be organized or my brain will not function. So I like to, there's this really cool app called Asana that I've been using that I'm really enjoying. And you get to, build out a project and you get to assign different people to it to do different tasks. So that's been really helpful, but also communication. I really like to, make sure there's transparency. And if there's something that I don't know, or I have a question about, or I just, have this weird feeling, I go and I tackle it just like, a running back. I just run to it and I'm like, all right, let's fix this. How can I make it clear? What do I need to do to fix the problem? How can I fix it? And then I go and I fix it. But I think communication, especially in today's time where we're all on video, we're all on phones, it could be very easy to just ignore it and, not face the communication. But I think it's super, super, super important to make sure and let your team know, or really anybody, what is going on and how you can collaborate together to fix the problem instead of, hiding in the background and not really facing the issue. So I think that is a very strong thing that I have, is just being communicative and, if there's an issue, trying to, fix it and finalize it. And then secondly, organization. I love writing. I have the Asana app that helps me a lot. And then I also just have a notebook that I love to write my things in. And it just keeps me organized. And I love it. It really helps me go through my day-to-day basis.
Well, those are all very good tips. And thank you for sharing your systems. Have you always been like that? Or was it, when you really became a project manager, and there's multiple projects, a lot of things coming at you, then you're like, I need a system. When did you really create this system?
I've always had a system, but it's never been this intense of what it is today. I've definitely learned what doesn't work for me and what does. And I think being a project manager here at SIG and having so many projects has really morphed me into an amazing organizer. And I've slowly but surely have learned how to up my organization game, but definitely came with practice and some not so great organizational, things that I was doing that weren't working for me, that might work for somebody else, but just exploring everything and, finding what works good for me and just keep moving with it is where I'm at right now.
Very cool. Thanks, Jessye. Let's talk about bucket list. I'm a fan of bucket list. Do you have any adventure or travel or what are a couple things on your bucket list?
Yes. So this has been on my bucket list since I was 5, because I remember my mom telling me this when I was little. So when my mom got here from Cuba, she went with her uncle in an RV to all 50 states. And so I want to do the same thing. So awesome. I'm thinking of one day purchasing a nice little, tiny mobile home or something, definitely has to be sustainable. Maybe it could be a LEED certified mobile home. Who knows? But getting one of those and going around and just staying in each state for a couple of days. And, I could even work in the RV if I have to, but just going, driving, exploring, look at all the different regions that, the U.S. has and taking photos. And I think that's the biggest, really one thing on my bucket list right now.
I love it. That's a big trend, especially with the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic is, can work pretty much from wherever. I definitely know some folks that have even taken their families, kind of do remote school, remote work, and just see this great country. Mm-hmm. So I'd encourage that. That's really cool. So let's talk about books. I don't know if you like to listen to audiobooks or you like to pick up a book in your hands, but is there a book you'd recommend?
I haven't really read recently, but my favorite book ever that I think everyone should read at least once in their life. I've read it 50 times because it's my favorite. It's called The Alchemist. And this book is incredible. It is about looking at, it was this guy that was looking for treasure, and where he found the treasure is just, I mean, I can't say it because I'm going to spoil it, but this book shows people that it's not necessarily about wanting something and then getting it. What do you do after you get it? Like, what's the next thing? So really showing people how to appreciate the actual journey and the hard work and the day-to-day struggles, and then finally getting the treasure. Looking at it that way, I think, is very inspiring, and like will help with anything that you do in this world. Work, relationships, really anything. Looking at the journey of it instead of the what I want, okay, cool, I got it. So I think that book is very powerful, and I love it so much. It's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Love it. No, it's a classic. And we'll put a link in the podcast show notes so everybody can get their copy. Thanks for telling us that, Jessye. So two final questions. We've gotten to know you more, your exciting work you're doing in this green building movement. Is there any career advice you wish you'd have known a little earlier?
Just to ask more questions, not be afraid to ask more questions. I think a good career advice would be, like I mentioned, really try to do internships as early on as you can, so you can really see if you like to do that work or not. You know, I remember when I was working at the clinic at Emory, I was like, I can't do this. And this is, I mean, kudos to all the nurses out there, but I was very sad when I would go to work. You know, I'd have patients. As I told you, I'm a very personable person. I would get very close to my patient. They would pass away, and I would just be in a dump for like 2 weeks, and then it would happen again. And I couldn't really, you know, do that. So like, I think it's important to really go out there, get your hands dirty, you know, see what these companies do that you're interested in, get an internship, do the work, and then you'll know then if you like it or not. And then you'll never go back to it if you didn't like it, but at least you know and you tried it, and you can keep it moving either way. But I think it's important to get your hands dirty and get out there, you know, into the sites and try different things out so you know what's going to fuel your fire that you have.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice. Well, the last thing here, let's say someone's listening, Jessye, to the podcast. They're getting inspired hearing your story and everything you got inspired by on the environmental side, and now what you're doing with buildings and your career. Do you have any words of encouragement for them?
Yes, you guys can do it. You can definitely do it, because, not to brag, but I did it as a single mom. I did it with a toddler. And yes, if you've got the drive, you've got the ambition, you've got the passion, just move the legs and do it. Don't be afraid. You know, there's going to be scary things coming out your way, and it might be scary to reach out to a CEO of a company for an informational interview, but you'll never know if you don't do it. So do it, you know, ask questions, get in there, and just don't give up. Do not ever give up, because you can totally do anything that you want to do. You just got to keep moving. So I think that's the advice I'd give.
That's some great encouragement, and you need to give yourself some credit there, Jessye. I know it's not easy. You're doing fantastic. You're an inspiration to so many, and I'm really proud of you, and I'm just so glad you're on the team, and just hope everybody can connect with Jessye. You know, reach out, let her know what you thought of the podcast. If you have a follow-up question, you know, ask her what she likes to cook, things like that. Make sure you connect with Jessye on LinkedIn. We'll put her LinkedIn bio in the show notes, the Alchemist book link, and we just hope you have an awesome day. Jessye, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Charlie, and thanks everyone for listening. Definitely reach out.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode. And you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.